Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We're back with a Toolsday. It's been a long time, but we got a good one for you, so let's get into it. So today we're talking about the cordless routers, and mainly the big three that are out on the market. A lot of you have asked me to talk about these routers. The Makita's been out for a long time, the Dewalt came out next, and then now the Milwaukee router is out and available. So let's go ahead and just go through some of the quick specs, because there's not a whole lot of specs for these things. They're a pretty simple tool. They really only do one thing, and that's spin really fast. So with the Makita, you've got a 10 to 30,000 RPM with an adjustable speed on it. And you've got the Milwaukee that does 10 to 31,000 RPM with adjustable speed. And then you have the Dewalt, which is weird, it's 16,000 to 25,500 RPM, and that also has an adjustable speed. Now, all of these are gonna run off of obviously a single battery. Makita, 18-volt battery, the Milwaukee, also 18-volt battery, and then your Dewalt 20-volt battery. One thing to note is that all of these today we're gonna run off of a 5 amp hour battery, but the nice thing about the Milwaukee and the Dewalt is that you can use their high-end, high-output batteries. You could put a 12 amp hour battery on the Milwaukee, or you could go ahead and put a 12 amp hour, 60 volt, flex volt battery on the Dewalt. So that's one thing that definitely the Makita lacks right now, and I think that's in all their single battery tools, is that they're limited to their battery. They really just haven't come out with a new solution. But if you guys didn't know that, Makita is coming out with a whole new battery platform. It's going to come out this year. Hopefully I'll get a chance to put my hands on it, and I will share some of that with you as it comes out. But for now, we're just going to use a 5 amp hour when we get into the demos at the end of this. Milwaukee's claiming that with one of their 5 amp hour batteries, they can go 250 linear foot with a 3/8 round over in red oak. Sounds like a lot, kind of just whatever. Dewalt claims that you can, actually no, they don't claim anything. They have no specs on runtime, what it can do. I couldn't find anything. So my experience is all I have as far as battery power, longevity, and life goes. But the Makita does claim that it can do 380 linear foot with a 1/4 inch router bit set at 5/30 seconds. So at first I was like, wow, 380 feet, but that's only just over an 1/8 inch deep. So it's not big. It's basically probably just running the battery for the total 380 linear foot, but sounds really impressive. And honestly, guys, that's about it for specs. We don't really have much because, like I said, these things are meant to turn on, spin really fast, and that's about it. But there are features on each of these that we'll talk about, some similarities, some differences. So let's talk about those features. So first, let's talk about the size and weight of the tools without any accessories, without any batteries. The Milwaukee, you know, when we're looking at just straight up height, with everything compressed down, the Milwaukee, Makita, then the Dewalt. That is the differences in height. Not a big deal, but I do believe when you look at them in just an overall size, the Makita still feels like the tiniest router of the three. The Dewalt is definitely the biggest. It feels the chunkiest in your hand. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. I think it depends on what you're doing. But overall, these are pretty small tools until you kind of start putting batteries on. I always think once you start putting a battery on the tool, that kind of tells the story as to what the tool really is, because you need the battery in order to operate. It didn't change the overall comparison or differences between them. It's still Milwaukee, Makita, Dewalt, but these are fairly large tools when it comes to being a trim router. If you've ever used a corded trim router, you know, they're a lot smaller, but still the ability to have a cordless tool out on site, to me, is always kind of a good give and take. I would rather have a little bit of size and weight, but free myself from the cord. Now, the next thing I wanted to do was just, I think because it's kind of crazy, I'm gonna show you guys how small these are when you actually take everything off and we're just dealing with the tool itself. So I'm gonna take everything off. What am I doing? Oh, sorry, I wasn't pressing the right button. And each of these also is dealt with a little bit differently, the way these things come off, and we will definitely talk about that as well. But it's kind of crazy when you look at how simple these tools are, and that's why there's really not much specs to it, because all we have is a brushless motor in all of these that's just spinning up super fast. But since I've got them off, I'll show you guys kind of how these things go on and a little bit of the differences, because the Dewalt specifically, that took me a little bit of time, and maybe I'm just simple-minded, but it always kind of catches me off guard because it operates a little differently. Once you've undone this little lever here, it will just slide on. There's some guide keys in there that are making sure that it stays in the right spot. So you've got your micro adjustment ring, and it's got these little levers on that you depress on both sides, and this thing will slide in and it hooks on. So once those clip over, now you can micro adjust the base plate up and down, get it to where you want it, and lock into place. The problem the thing I don't like about this is that no matter what, you have to depress, spin out of these little rings, then you can take it off. It's just a lot slower, and if you want to macro adjust this and go right out, at like full depth, you can do that, but then you have to spin this up, get it close, lock it in, and then micro adjust it. Now, with these other two, we'll start with the Makita. You're just gonna line up the little, gear here, and you're in. And then you can either macro adjust or fine tune micro adjust and lock it into place. So you've just got this little, wheel here to spin. With the Milwaukee, it's very similar. You're gonna do the same thing as the Makita. You're just gonna put it on, but you've got a button. So with the button, you can hold that down and macro adjust it, or once you get it to where you're close, you can micro adjust and lock it in. So to me, I feel like the Makita is the easiest. It's very simple, quick to adjust, and I think that the Dewalt is probably the most cumbersome adjustment. And one thing to note is that there's no dimensions on the tool itself. So the Makita and Milwaukee both have a little guide rule here that you can, at least use as a reference. So once you get set, let's say you want to go another 1/16 of an inch deeper in your dado cut or whatever, it's very easy to do, not so easy on the Dewalt. All right, now let's talk about the on-off switch. So we kind of talked about how you can adjust it, get it to where you want. One thing I should mention is that these all have a nice little button that you're going to press in as you turn your collet here to put your bit in and out. And that's gonna lock it in so that you can use a wrench and change the bit. We'll show you that in a little bit when I put some bits in. All of them do have that feature, so I just wanted to point that out. Now, let's talk about the power buttons. All of these power buttons are just a little bit different. The Milwaukee, if you're going to be using the router, most likely you're gonna wanna see what you're routering out. So you're gonna have it in your hand in a manner, something like this, I would assume. And the Milwaukee is, accessible by your thumb, or maybe you're gonna turn it on and then start doing your project, but it's not bad. It's not in a bad location. The Makita is definitely different. They thought of a power button and an unlock button. So not only is it not a paddle switch or whatever like the Makita or the Milwaukee and the Dewalt, but you first have to hit the unlock button, then you can turn it on. From an ergonomic standpoint, it's not as good, it's not as accessible. If you're holding on to the router, you have to almost just use your second hand, which that's fine, it's not a big deal, but it's definitely different, and it always gets me caught up because you have to always unlock it every time you go to turn it on or off, or just turn it on, I'm sorry, but it times out. So if you hit unlock, turn it on, turn it off, and then go to grab it a minute later, you gotta hit that unlock button again. So something to note, not a huge deal breaker again. But then we've got the Dewalt here, and the Dewalt, once again, it's kind of, I think it's just personal preference. It's a lot bigger in your hand, so you don't have as much. Hold my router right here, and if I'm doing my thing, I guess I could just use my other hand, but this Dewalt has the switch on the side. I would say the Milwaukee has the switch on the front, and then the Makita, it's on the front, but it's not a switch, it's a push button, unlock, and then turn on. So all of them are slightly different. It's gonna be a personal preference thing. For me, whatever one I'm using, I just get used to it. So it's not really a deal breaker either way. So the next thing we're gonna talk about real quick is just the adjustable speed. Milwaukee's got a little paddle wheel here, 1 to 6. I don't know what that really means, 1 to 6. I think it's just a number. You know, Makita, they do it on the side as well, and they only go 1 to 5. Oh my God, it's only got 5 adjustments. And then the Dewalt, oh geez, Dewalt has 7. Like, that's a big deal. So you've only got 5 adjustments on the Makita, 6 on the Milwaukee, but you get 7 on the Dewalt. Okay, I'm being jokeful because I don't think it really matters. There doesn't even need to be a number. Just put the wheel there and we'll just kind of fine tune it as using it. In my opinion, maybe that's crazy, but do you guys ever use the wheel and like record the number down and think about it? I don't know, but I just wanted to point it out there that the Dewalt has 7 adjustment numbers on their speed wheel. And the last thing I wanted to share is that all 3 of these routers, they have 2 LEDs to shine onto your work platform or whatever you're doing. So I don't know if they're all gonna operate the same. We'll get into that because each one of these has a different looking base plate. So let's go ahead and get into some of these demos and get a feel for what they sound like, how quick they start up, how quick they break, and how they operate. So I thought before we go ahead and get right into demos, I wanted to show you how these all turn on and off, because I think it's very important. Not only I like a nice smooth start on a super high RPM tool, but also because of the nature of this tool, because you have a bit sticking out that can severely hurt somebody, I want it to turn off just as quick as when I hit that button. So we'll start with the Milwaukee. I'll go ahead, I've got it on full speed, which should be 3,100 RPM. I'm gonna turn it on and then we'll go ahead and let it spin up and turn off. So it doesn't seem like it has super soft start. It almost seems like it's straight to full RPM. But it does turn off almost instantaneously. All right, with the Makita, let's go ahead. First, hit that unlock button. Now the tool is live. Here we go. So it definitely starts nice and soft, but it definitely takes way too long to turn off. Yeah, so to me, that's not the best thing. I would like that to turn off a lot quicker. Now let's go ahead and fire up the Dewalt. Once again, this has the least RPM out of the 3. Let's go ahead and turn it on and then I'll let it spin up and turn it off. So you can definitely hear a soft start. It's not as soft as the Makita, but dude, that thing turns off like as soon as I hit the button. So really nice break on the Dewalt. I wanted to share that with you guys. Now let's go ahead. I'm gonna take the batteries back out and I'll put a bit in and I'm gonna try to use the same bit. I don't have amazing bits, so I'm not a woodworker. I need to get a good set of router bits. I've got just a nice flush cut CMT. I pick them all up at Menards. That's where I buy a lot of my stuff. This was probably the best bit I bought, and I use this when I am trying to cut through wood, and I use this the most on site. I use routers a lot for like dados, cleaning out post or lumber when I need something to fit in between maybe where 2 pieces of lumber are coming together. And I can't remember this bit, but I will put a link down below. It's a killer bit, a downward spiral bit. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's make some wood chips. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the Makita since this was the first one to come out, be released, take out the battery, obviously. And I'm gonna go ahead and start with a 3/8 round over because Milwaukee claims they can do 250 foot with this. This seems like the most demanding claim of the 3. So we're gonna go ahead and put this one in and we'll start there. You can see that little button, that's what you're gonna push in. And once it's locked, you can really lock it down. All right, because the standard base does not work, it doesn't have a big enough opening for this 3/8 round over. It's no big deal. I'm gonna go ahead and put on the plunge router base, which this actually comes with the Makita kit. I'll go ahead and throw links to all of these in the description, so check that out. Nice thing about this is once you lock it down, pretty easy to just go ahead and fine tune the depth that you're looking for. We're not gonna get into accessories though, but it does look like I need to go just a little bit deeper. If anybody's used a plunge router base, they are pretty slick. I'm gonna lock that down. So now I can at least do my round over that I was looking for. Battery. Oh yeah, one more thing I gotta do. I gotta get my hearing protection and my eye protection. All right, let's go ahead and run a 3/8 over. We just got some standard pine and see how it goes. Unlock, power button. So you never really heard the tool bog down. Obviously this is just pine, but it does a really good job, very smooth. That's the one thing I like about the Makita. Super smooth startup, smooth operation, plenty of power it seems. I just wish that it would turn off a lot quicker. Let's go ahead and put this on the Dewalt. The Dewalt was the next one to come out. All right, now with the Dewalt, we'll do the same thing. I didn't have to change out the base plate. It fit in just perfect. I've got it on full speed. Let's go ahead and go for it. I mean, 3/8 round over. I could have went a little deeper on that, my bad. I don't think it matters a ton. I don't think this thing was ever gonna not do a good job. Nice, a lot of power. It's definitely louder than Makita, but it has that nice, quick break right at the end. Let's go ahead and now throw it on the Milwaukee. I'm assuming it's gonna perform just as well, but that was the latest one to come out, so that's why we're doing it last. All right, Milwaukee, we'll go put that on full speed as well and give it a run, but first I gotta move my material a little bit. All right, full speed, and let's give it a go. Oops. Hit a knot there. I would say that the Milwaukee is probably, it seems like the loudest. It's also the highest RPM, so that does make sense. But like the Dewalt, it shuts off almost immediately. I will say I probably should be doing this on top of more material because it's just barely touching my plywood, but I don't think it matters for this test, guys. This is a super easy test. Let's go ahead and put another bit and let's go through like some actual 2x material and let's push the router a little bit harder. All right, so for the next test, what I've got is a downward spiral bit. My good buddy, Tim, Awesome Framers, he's the one that, over on Instagram, go check him out. He does some cool work, but he's the one that turned me onto this bit. It's great. And what I'm gonna do is basically just make some, I guess, dados in this 2x12 material. And what I've done is set this thing up about, it's right at 1 inch of depth. So let's go ahead and give it a go, full speed, see how it performs. We're gonna start with the Milwaukee and I'm just gonna work my way back the other way. Hey. So listen, that's not like the best thing to do. At that depth, it can be a little hairy as you've seen, but I really just wanted to push the router itself. A little bit bigger bit would obviously be better, but this is something that I do a lot of because I get into situations where I'm putting wood together, but let's say I've got a bolt head sticking out that I need to clean out, or not too long ago, if you guys seen the video where I did some staircases, the staircase, one of the risers was right up against where a pipe was, and I had to router out about 1 inch of the 2x material. Yeah, you could take a circular saw and do that, clean it out, but the router is super easy, and having cordless, it just makes it a lot more fun, I think, as well. But we'll go ahead and run this on the other two and just get a feel for what the router does power-wise. All right, Dewalt, here we go, high speed. Let's give it a run. Yikes. So the one thing I always have to remind myself is which way I'm going with the router and what side works the best. So when it skips out like that, usually you're going the wrong way. But man, that thing does rip pretty well. The problem is without an outlet, all the wood chips pile up right here. I need something to like clean this stuff out. There's a lot of wood chips in there. And if I had an outlet, it would actually run a little bit better. All that wood chips in here does add a lot of friction. You can feel the heat in here and how they clean out. But anyway, that's the Milwaukee, the Dewalt. Now let's try the Makita. All right, now one thing I want to point out, the standard base here with the Dewalt, being squared off like this, man, it makes it super easy when you want to run up along things. Not that you can't do that with the other two, but it just having that square, it does make it a lot more comfortable. All right, turn on. You see what I mean? That is, to me, a little bit dangerous, having that thing still spinning. You just gotta be cognizant of that so that you know that it's gonna be spinning up for a little bit when you're done. I didn't really probably do a good job with the Milwaukee. I just did a couple passes and probably not as accurate as to what I would do on site. A lot of times I do what I did with the Dewalt and the Makita, where I'll go into the material, come back, and kind of keep going in. It's a little bit easier, a little bit cleaner, and probably a little bit safer too. As you guys seen, it was a little bit smoother. I don't know, to me, that's like real world application. I'm not a trim guy. I don't do finished carpentry, so I don't use my routers for that. I use it in construction, rough framing. If I had a piece of oak here, I would probably show you guys, you know, how it performs in actual red oak too.
What about the one you've been standing on?
What?
You know, the one to make it look taller?
Oh yeah, I forgot. I do have this chunk of red oak I usually stand on to look a little bit taller, but yeah, I guess we could run the router through this too. What the heck? Thanks, Jared. Thanks a lot, buddy. Now they know my secret. All right, so why not? Because I think that this is probably more demanding. We'll just run this bit through and see how it performs one time real quick. I'll give you my closing remarks. One thing I wanted to note is that with the LEDs, specifically like let's say the Makita, it does light up the surface pretty well, but because this is a solid base compared to, there's more room in the Milwaukee, and definitely the Dewalt is definitely a clear winner because this whole thing is clear. Just a note, I just wanted to point that out. Obviously when I'm using the plunge base, when you want to see more visual what you're doing, because usually you're not going around a perimeter, you're plunging into your material. You really need to see what you're doing. Just a side note, I just wanted to share that, but let's go ahead and see what happens here. Just running through this oak. So totally doable. You could hear it was, you know, it was struggling a little bit, but totally doable, man. And that's cordless router. Let's go ahead and run the other ones real quick. All right, Dewalt, let's try it with the Dewalt. All right. Yikes. I was wanting to push my square. I should latch that down, but seemed like it didn't bog down near as much, a little bit more power. I heard the RPM stay up real high. All right, let's put the Milwaukee through the paces. All right, Milwaukee, your turn. Let's run it through, make sure it's on high speed. There we go. I think all of those just performed quite well through some nice red oak, made a big mess, but I think that's pretty much it, guys. Let's kind of talk about what I think about all three of these and maybe what my opinion is. All right, so we have the three big name cordless routers. I think everybody, you know, was waiting for specifically Milwaukee to finally come out with a router because Makita has done it so long ago. Dewalt followed it up with this beast, but now all three are here. And I think the beautiful thing is it doesn't matter what platform you're on. All three of these perform quite well. Not exactly in performance. I mean, the Milwaukee definitely has the highest RPM. I think it feels the most powerful for a sound and comfort, you know, standpoint, because it's not as big and thick as the Dewalt, but the Dewalt definitely just when you use it, it feels like it's got a ton of power. Doesn't have as high of an RPM, which I don't know if that really matters. I mean, all the tests I did, I don't think RPM changed anything for me. If anything, the higher the RPM sometimes, the more burning you do and the less cutting you do. So that's when it's nice to have that dial to speed up and slow down and whatever your bit. The Makita, man, I mean, I think the Makita is just great because they're the ones that started it with the cordless router. And I think that Makita in itself is always a very quality product. I've never had a poor Makita tool, but I think it is underpowered. I think that where this one falls short is the fact that Makita's battery platform, you know, until they update it, which I don't know that they're going to update their 18 volt. They're kind of coming out with their new, I do believe it's a 40 volt. I don't remember exactly, but it's not cross compatible. So you're not gonna be able to use that battery on this system. So it's limited. Here with the Milwaukee and the Dewalt, you can throw like some super beefy batteries on. It does make it more bulky, but you're gonna get great runtime. I know specifically with the Milwaukee, you're gonna get an increase in speed with their high output batteries. I don't know that the Flex Volt is going to increase power, but you're definitely gonna gain a ton of runtime. So all of these perform great. You're gonna be able to free yourself of a cord, whether you're in a shop or on the job site, and probably do almost everything you need to do with these routers for the application in which they were intended for. I didn't do the demo, you know, showcasing out on site. What I love to use these for is cutting out windows. So whether you sheeted through a window frame, coming back and cutting them open. But I think seeing a full 1-inch depth through this oak, it tells you that all three of these are gonna do that just fine. The biggest thing I found is that the bit makes all the difference in the world. So I've got pretty crappy bits minus this really nice one here, which I will leave a link down in the description, but a bit is gonna make a big difference no matter which one you have. So if you're already on the Makita platform, don't feel bad. It's gonna perform quite well. But if you're on the Milwaukee or Dewalt, I think that's where I would go if you're looking to buy one. And I don't really think that it's gonna make a difference which one you go. They both perform quite well. I think if I was you, I'd put them both in my hands and see what it feels like because the ergonomics are definitely different. But anyway, you guys asked for this video. I don't know if I gave you the information you wanted, but like always, you can drop some comments down below and let me know what you thought and let me know what the next video should be about, but not just what it should be about, but go ahead and drop me some information on specifically what you're looking for out of that tool you'd like me to make a video about. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate the support. It's good to be back in the shop doing Toolsday. I know we took some time off, but we're back. So we'll see you guys on the next one.